capture this conversation as well for anyone who isn't able to make this. So today on the conversation, we're delighted to talk with you about the Circulate Initiative and the Alliance to End Plastic Waste and our partnership to close the data gap around ocean plastics and plastic pollution in the environment. We'll talk a little bit about PRISM, a tool that we're excited to share that the Alliance has been developing. And we'll also talk in particular about the Closing the Data Gap Challenge, how you can participate and answer any questions that you may have about the process. So with that, let me just take a quick moment to share with you on today's call. We have myself, Ellen Martin from the Circulate Initiative, Sabine Strnad from the Alliance to End Plastic Waste, and Umesh Madhavan from TCI as the research director. Nick Kolesch from the Alliance unfortunately is not able to make it today, but we will look forward to having him join a future conversation with this group. And just as a little bit of background, if you're not familiar with the Circulate Initiative, we are a nonprofit organization that's committed to ending ocean plastic pollution and build thriving, inclusive economies. Our focus of work is on South and Southeast Asia. And we do this by incubating solutions and generating insights that are focused not just on the problem of ocean plastic, but on generating solutions that advance the circular economy. We have two key programs. Today, we're focused on our partnership around insights that we have with the Alliance to End Plastic Waste, where we're working to really improve data and knowledge for a variety of actors in the system as we're all trying to advance solutions. And then also we are part of a key partnership on the Incubation Network, which works on incubating solutions across the value chain, again, to strengthen the ecosystem and support and scale those early stage innovations. Our levers for change, connect in a way that allows more capital to be invested in the sector. And we consider both private and public partners to be really key to making sure that more capital comes in to address the plastic pollution challenge. I'm going to turn it over now to Sabine to talk a little bit more about the Alliance's work and its commitment to taking action on plastic waste.
Thank you, Ellen. The Alliance to End Plastic Waste is a community which covers the whole value chain. It was formed in 2019 by 27 founding CEOs, and currently there are about 66 member companies, and they have raised $1.1 billion US dollars. The founding principles are very important. It's an acting organization, it's a collective action, and it has a very strong cross-value chain approach. And it's not a do tank, but it's a think tank. And the aim is to invest significantly to demonstrate and de-risk the solutions for a circular economy. One of the key projects, no, the other side, one of the key projects and one of the first projects which were started is PRISM. It's the Plastic Recovery and Insight and Steering Model in order to close the data gap. It's an open source platform to centralize and harmonize the plastic waste information and to increase the knowledge and to support any interventions to reduce the mismanagement and the leakage of plastic waste. It covers a couple of KPIs. It includes the municipal solid waste, but as well the plastic waste, the mismanaged waste, infrastructure, and the policies on to support the overall line of sight, what is happening. Okay, now we have a short intro into the PRISM, you see anyone with the URL is currently able to enter in the beta version. With the registration, it will be assigned a user ID and a password, and with this then the test user is able to enter. When it is keyed in, then this is the URL. Now, if it's keyed in, that's the landing page. There are several areas in PRISM. One for the holistic view are the heat maps. On the heat maps, we have several subjects. In any of them, as you can see right now, infrastructure can be activated. Here we have formal and informal infrastructure. Zooming in shows additional information about the specific site. The heat maps are covering from plastic consumption over municipal solid waste collection, generation and collection, plastic waste generation and collection, then the amount of plastic waste mismanaged, and a very specific map as well for infrastructure. The country-specific information provides additional line of sight with info boxes on the right-hand side. There can be multiple KPIs clicked on, and then there is a trend line provided. It's possible to switch between the heat maps, and we have on the country information, additional information on lower administration levels. Here in India, it's the second one because we have got more data. Zooming into one of the specific smaller admin level provides then information in that respect, and this is why we have started with the RFP to close our knowledge in smaller areas and to get additional information in place. Here is an example about the different heat maps as it is built, and the next part is the data warehouse, the data repository. Again, there are we have one for all the waste domains. It is possible either to search on a very granular level for the city. Then it's important to define the years which are applicable and to apply. With this done, then the information shows up. And with scrolling and activating the different waste domains, the information is displayed. The black box or the black dot beside of the data information provides the source, and then the next step, it will also provide some information about the data quality. It is also possible to search by a country, and then it's the simple search function which can be used. With this, again, the year and apply, a dashboard appears about the socioeconomic and detailed information about the country. And in the next levels, then all the smaller admin level information are stored in the database and can be looked up as it was previously with the city information. Last but not least, we have the infrastructure. It's again on a country level and facility level. We do have informal and formal recycling facilities, sorting facilities, collection, and waste to energy and open dumps. It's searched by country and the facility type, applied the search engine, and then the list of respective companies will appear with the information if it's an operational facility and about the material which is processed and the capacity for that specific plant.
Terrific. Thank you, Sabine. Before we go on, I just wanted to mention, I think I see Nick Kolesch here. So Nick, if you want to say a word, I think you're off mute. But great to have you here. And maybe you can also address, introduce yourself, but also address sort of the origin of PRISM and who's the partner involved.
Indeed. Well, great. Thanks very much. And a great introduction there also from Sabine to the Alliance and to PRISM. So my name is Nick Kolesch. I'm the Vice President of Projects at the Alliance based in Singapore. I've actually been working with Sabine since I joined the Alliance back in May last year. And one of the things that we exactly started on was the development of what's become PRISM. And indeed, it's actually been, I think, quite a labor of love to actually get this system to the stage where it's at now. And it's actually fundamental for us, for the Alliance, because as you saw there, we're trying to capture and harmonize data that is going to address what we call the plastic, one of the key plastic circularity gaps or plastic waste circularity gaps, which is the data gap. And I think as we know, there's a lot of information out there. There's a lot of missing information, and it's about bringing that, I think, that data together and providing the foundation for the analytics of it. So you saw in the presentation there from Sabine a quick overview. But one of the things that we've thought about using PRISM for is really to support our community in the sense that it can be the place where data can be brought together and harmonized in a standard way. And so the idea was to build on what we've created, but recognizing there's some gaps in the system, in the data. And ultimately, we want to work with the Circulate Initiative here on a challenge that is going to enable us to close some of those very specific data gaps that we've identified, in particular for some specific geographies, which you would have seen in the RFP, and we'll be going into a bit more detail on that. So it's a great opportunity to connect with a broader community. The Alliance is founded on collaboration, and this is a great opportunity to collaborate, to pull together those missing data sets and figure out what we don't know, and get it into the system and make the PRISM platform even stronger. Today, I think it has more than 500 different data sources in it. Maybe actually probably closer to 800 now from multiple different sources. And we're looking to continue to build on it. And so it's quite exciting to advance this challenge, this closing the data gap challenge, to really work with a community who's interested to help us address this part of the plastic waste challenge. So great to have everybody on the line today. And thanks so much to the TCI team, Ellen and Umesh, for pulling this together.
Great. Thanks so much, Nick. I will turn it over to Umesh to talk more about the challenge.
Wonderful. Thank you, Nick. Thank you, Sabine. I think that was a great introduction to the Alliance and also the tool. So good morning or good afternoon, wherever you are. Thank you for joining us today. So the next few slides, I'll share more details of the Data Gap Challenge and also tell you how you can participate in this research study. So like Nick mentioned, the Data Gap Challenge, or closing the Data Gap Challenge, as the name suggests, is to fill the data gaps that exist. So what we're trying to do here is to make sure that we gather data at a very local administrative level, because eventually the problem is at a very local level. So the more data, the better quality data that we have, the better action that the various stakeholders can take to tackle that problem. So there are two interlinked objectives of the Data Gap Challenge. Firstly, through the project, we hope to investigate macroplastic waste data on a local level, like I mentioned, and this data will feed into PRISM, the tool that you just saw. Secondly, to make sure that the overall availability and quality of data, which is connected with plastic pollution and along the plastic value chain, improves. So we're gathering more data and also providing better access to the data to a platform which is easy to use for anybody who wishes to act on that data. Ellen, if you could help me go to the next slide. Right. So we have identified 3 countries where the challenge would be focused. These are India, Malaysia, and the Philippines. For India and Malaysia, we've also identified sub-geographies, but these are suggestions and we welcome inputs in the proposal on additional geographies. What I would like to highlight on this slide is that we encourage research partners to conduct research at the lowest administrative level feasible. So for example, it could be at a city level or at a district level. But that's entirely for the research partners to propose what they believe is a feasible level to conduct the research at, and also highlight the rationale for the cities. Why is it that you're recommending a certain city which you believe the research should be conducted in one of these 3 countries, that is, and also the sampling approach that you take within the city with respect to conducting the research. Next slide. Yeah, thank you. So if you're on this slide, we have a quick snapshot of all the data points that we are trying to collect information about. I'd encourage everybody to go and visit the RFP page, because this is like I said, a snapshot, but there's so much more detail that we're trying to capture around each of these indicators. So firstly, with demographics, we're looking at basic demographic and socioeconomic data on the city for which the research is conducted. Moving on to municipal solid waste, we need data on the tonnage which is generated of the municipal solid waste which is collected, and also its composition. Specifically for plastic, we are looking for data on waste generated, which is further broken down by the type of polymer. For example, is it HDPE, is it LDPE, is it PPE, and so on. We are also looking for application, because as you can imagine, in a lot of cities where research has already been done, we noticed that shopping bags or food packaging or beverage packaging, depending on the city, is a significant source of plastic pollution. So we'd like to capture that level of data. Also looking at consumption data, mismanaged waste data, plastic leakage, and the end of life. So eventually want to know where this all plastic ends up. Is it ending up in an open dump? Is it ending up in a sanitary landfill? Or is it ending up for incineration? So this is a material flow aspect of it, which covers topics 2 to 7. So first is demographics, then you're looking at the whole material flow. But one of the other often overlooked aspects of the whole plastics value chain flow is the human element of it. So we are also trying to understand the lives and livelihoods of the waste workers who are involved, especially of the informal collectors of waste in the cities where the research is being conducted. Right. And now the $1 million question is, how do we go about collecting the data? And I'd say that there's no one single answer to this. So we have suggestions. I mean, we have provided the PLP, or the plastic pollution hotspotting methodology, as a guidance. We expect that demographic data, so item number 1 in the previous slide, which I mentioned, should come through from either a local statistics authority or a national statistics authority if they provide you data on a city level or the administrative level that you're conducting research on. For items 2 to 7 and also number 8, we expect primary research to be conducted. So whether it be with respect to plastic consumption, whether it be with respect to the municipal solid waste flow or the plastic waste flow, we are hoping that you can conduct primary research and gather this data, because that provides a much better, a much more accurate source of information than going back to whatever has already been published. Let me also bring in Sabine here so that she can tell you a little bit more about the methodology and the approach which is recommended for data collection.
Thank you, Umesh. Yes, we have right now in PRISM, we do, because there was also a question in the question and answer box, how we get the data. So currently we have any public data, processed modeled data, as well factual monitored data. And based on that, we have started to build a regression model and archetypes to define the leakage for specific archetypes to help closing data gaps for spaces and places where we haven't got any information yet. One of the tasks that we are conducting now with the RFP is to get additional information and to add the knowledge what is missing. That's why we have chosen these 3 countries as the first batch. It's very important that we understand the way how you will gather the data, so that we have a good understanding about the boundaries of the data collection. As you have heard from Umesh before, we are looking for macroplastic from the municipal solid waste, which is mainly single-use plastic and packaging. We are not looking into microplastics, textiles, and other plastic streams. We have chosen the UN hotspot methodology because that was a guidance which is developed from IUCN and UNEP in order to help developing strategies to improve the hotspots and to reduce the plastic leakage. We have used the computation, how to define mismanaged and how to define the leakage rate in the specific hotspots according to that standard. When it comes to the data collection of the baseline, we do hope that there will be also some good understanding about what is the consumption and the way the plastic, the polymers are used in the specific town, city or region in terms of polymers and application, because there is a difference in the plastic stream, what of the specific materials is collected, picked and recycled. And we would like to provide the granularity, and we have started to provide the granularity already in PRISM. Another aspect is the waste characterization. So to understand how the municipal solid waste is composed of the different material streams with a very detailed line of sight of the plastic stream. So what is the rigid, the flexible, it's very important that it should be representative so that the sample size is representative for the place. Here we have also some guidance, but we are open for any other methodology as long it is representative and it follows a very clear direction. Then we are looking for the information about waste management. So what is happening right now in the city? In the guidance, you find also some templates, which is helping. But again, if you have another way and it's clear defined, then we can process this data in PRISM for that information. It's important that we cover the whole value chain. Yeah. Because there is a governance in place and it needs to, in the governance process, the aim is that to understand the full value chain, not to pick out one area about informal sector or to pick out one polymer stream only, but we would like to provide the full line of sight what is happening.
Fantastic. I think, Sabine, that's very clear, and can't say it any better in terms of making sure that we leave it to the applicants to propose a methodology which is sound in terms of the data collection. And we understand there is an established way, but we are looking at other ideas as well when it comes to picking up the data along the entire value chain. Right, Ellen, yeah, thank you. So looking at what we expect as outcomes from the study, of course, as we award the study, we expect the applicants to provide a detailed project plan, also a timeline in terms of when the project would start and when the project is expected to be completed. I can mention it now that we are looking at commencing the project after 3 weeks within awarding. So once the contracting is done and it's all good to go, we expect the partner to start within 3 weeks. We've set aside a total period of 6 months for the project to be completed. So hopefully we aim to wrap up the project for the city or the cities that the applicant is conducting the research within that 6-month period. At the initial stage, we're also expecting that you provide the briefs and the data templates which are required for the project so that we can vet it, we can discuss it and finalize it before we move on to the data collection. Of course, updates are a part of the project. We'll have check-ins on a regular basis. We're recommending bi-weekly check-ins. Eventually, we expect the data to be delivered in either an Excel sheet format or in the form of Google Sheets. That's something we can, of course, discuss. At this point in time, we're still discussing on what the insights should be produced in what format the insights should be produced. It can be a Word document, it can be a Google Doc document. The other deliverable is photographs as well as you conduct the research, and we'd love to be part of the fieldwork team and visiting the countries where the research is being conducted, but unfortunately COVID prevents us from doing so. So we're hoping that at least once when you conduct the research, involve us by providing photographs of the fieldwork that's being undertaken. Right, on timelines and milestones. We've been working on the back end of developing the RFP and the research scope for this for a while now. So we are in the midst of in the thick of things. We have the webinar today. We've had the proposal open for about 2 weeks now, and we'll have it open for applications can be submitted for another 2 weeks. By the 31st of October, we hope to close the submission deadline, and we will be evaluating the proposals thereafter. So there's a evaluation process which happens before we decide on the parties to whom we'll be awarding the contracts. And we are hoping that between the months of November and December, we should be able to wrap that up such that we can start research proper in Jan. So we do the kickoff, the design tools and templates development and all of that. between Jan and March. We have interim data coming through by the end of the first quarter. Then another round of updates and research happens, and final data coming through by June. So that's the 6-month timeline that I shared earlier with respect to the whole research process. But we have provided for a little bit of buffer as well with review and feedback, just in case there's some procedural or logistics issues which needs to be resolved, or there's some challenges with respect to fieldwork, such that by middle of August, we can wrap up the whole research in all the countries where research is undertaken. Right. What do we expect from the proposals which are submitted? Firstly, these are the headings which we believe are mandatory so that we can evaluate all the proposals which are submitted on a uniform platform. Firstly, the scope, please be very clear about the geography or the geographies if you're researching in multiple countries and cities where the research would be conducted. Please also share the rationale why you went about selecting the particular city and the sampling process as well, what your approach is towards sampling. Do share the data points, KPIs in detail. I mentioned earlier, ideally, we'd like to see the whole value chain perspective, but if for some reason you'd like to focus on some aspects of it, please let us know what you would be focusing on and why, the rationale for that. Do tell us very clearly what's the research approach. Sabine said earlier, you can look at IUCN as a guide, or if you have other methodologies that you'd like to suggest, other approaches that you'd like to suggest, please do so. Please be clear about the deliverables. So linking back to number 1, where I said about the data points, please be clear about the deliverables that you would like to submit at the end of the study, and that you're also aiming to submit in terms of insights and reports. We have, as with any proposal, please have a clear timeline and a project management plan. I'll come to the budget in a little bit. It would also be beneficial for you to share if you've done similar work in any other city or any other country. Please do share that, because that builds the confidence that you've done something like that before. And we encourage that. With COVID, one of the key considerations is that we are mindful of the research which is conducted on the ground. So please have a risk register and a mitigation plan, just to make sure that the people who are undertaking the research are well and safe. And then please share also contact details of one primary contact person whom we can contact if we need more clarification and such. Budget-wise, just to close that slide, we encourage the applicants to provide one single amount in terms of what is the total budget which is requested of the project. In the RFP, we have actually provided an indicative range, but we understand that that would vary depending on the city or the cities where you conduct the research. So that's the total budget we expect for the project, and please keep that in mind as you submit your proposals. Right, so this is my last slide, and we have a good 30 minutes for questions if you have, and I see there are quite a few questions coming up in the Q&A box, so that's great. So if you have not downloaded the RFP so far, I'd encourage you to visit that site, the Circulate Initiative site, and then look for the data gap challenge. If you scroll all the way down to the end of the page, in the middle of the page, middle of that last banner, you'll actually find download the RFPs. So please encourage you to download the RFP and take a look at it. My contact details are on the RFP. So if you have any questions, please feel free to shoot me an email after this, even after this webinar. Happy to answer any questions which might come up. So that brings me to the end of the presentation, and I'll open up the floor for any questions.
Great.
Alice?
Terrific. Thanks. So let me just take these in order here. So source of the data on PRISM, I think Nick addressed that a little bit earlier on, but Sabine, any other additional comments on that front?
Yes, sure. Happy to answer. So we have multiple sources. We have around 800 sources right now. We have governmental data points. We have feasibility studies. We do have model data from the UN hotspot methodology. The reports are also processed. We do have data from public directories in the infrastructure, but as well here we did permit checks, and again we are back to the governmental data. So it's a quite variation, a big variation of different sources, which is currently used and transparently visible. Which source is and what is the nature of the data? Is it the model data? Is it the forecasted data, or is it the factual data?
Terrific. Great. A question about the demographic data. Are you looking for demographic data or will you provide sources? This is important to compare the data across geographies. Umesh, you mentioned this earlier.
Yeah.
Any further comments?
No, we need, oftentimes what we've noticed is that demographic data is not available on a city level at which we investigate. So we encourage the applicants to submit, look for that data and collect on a local level. So it's data collection on demographics is part of the scope of the project.
Great, terrific. And a question about the inventory data pertaining to quantity and characteristics of plastics. Can we perform the investigation based by the research team in collaboration with the City Council?
I don't know to whom this question is directed.
Professor Dubie, great to have you on the call. Thanks so much for attending. Do you want to take yourself off mute maybe and explain?
Ellen, I'm not sure you'd be able to do that. But
Okay, let me see.
maybe Professor Dubey, would you like to clarify that that's a question, and we can come back to it later?
Sure.
So maybe I could just address that if I get it correctly here. So the question is, can we perform investigations based on the research team in collaboration with the City Council? So I think there's no issue in relation to collaborating with a municipal or other government in that sense. So if, for example, there are certain data sets that are available via city or a higher level administrative authority in a geography, I think that would be good, right? That would be quite a nice foundation to build from. So indeed, I think there's no issue to collaborate on this with a local authority.
No, not at all. It's a very good asset if the collaboration is taking place with the municipality. And we do have municipal data from municipalities directly also already in the system. So, yeah.
And I think that's one of the strengths of PRISM. I mean, there are tools out there that tend to go on the national level, which tells a certain story. But when we look at plastic waste, it's what matters at the local level, right? And I think that's where PRISM has been designed, and Sabine has really been driving that this is something that you can really zoom in to a very specific geography. So again, quite powerful there.
Yeah, I see a couple of questions that are specifically related to access to PRISM. So maybe Sabine, you could address when, like, is it fully live and available at this point? How can applicants get access to it to better understand the data?
Sure, we are right now on a beta version, so it's not publicly as a public good and publicly available. But we have decided for this RFP, for the ones who participate, to have limited access. So I would like to invite you to go on the URL plasticinformation.org, create an account. It's very easy. With the green hyperlink, fill in your details. Important, please use an address, an email address, which is not Gmail or Hotmail or any GMX. It needs to be a company email, and then you get a confirmation email. Based on that, I will provide you access, and then you can have a look and tour around PRISM to understand better how it is built up. If there are any questions, please reach out to me. Happy to discuss further.
Yeah, maybe just quickly on the bigger picture of when and how it might be available more broadly. So that's indeed the discussions that we're in right now, and we are looking to, as Sabine indicated, to see this as a public good, so that this is something that is based on data from very public sources, and therefore should be available and should be a tool that everyone can use to help address the plastic waste issue and challenge. So we have, I would say, quite some good collaboration partners at the moment, and we are investigating how we can best make it live, recognizing that the user community could be quite huge, and we do need to make sure we're well set up to be able to accommodate what would be potentially a very large group of users. So that's coming, and there certainly will be a press release and a big announcement when that's decided. again, not too many months away, I think, for us to get there. But the more data we get in at this stage and we get in through these kind of challenges, the better the tool is going to be for sure.
Awesome, thank you. A couple of questions also on the scope of this cohort, if you will, of projects that could be funded and the budgets allowable. So one question is around, is this a competition, or are you looking for as many quality projects that are eligible and aligned as possible?
Yeah, so it is, it's a competition in the sense that if there's two for the same geography, then I think we would probably choose the best of the two. But again, we're looking for several geographies here, and we want to cap the amount per city or per submission. We won't necessarily cap the total. So we have some flexibility there. And we will see how things go, and we'll see the quality of what comes in, and that will be based on the selection criteria will enable us to choose hopefully more than one, hopefully several data sets that will build the system out.
Terrific, thanks, Nick. And I think that answers another question from somebody about the maximum budget per city or for multiple cities. It's maximum per submission or per application.
Yeah. Ellen, I was just going to building on what Nicholas mentioned. Did you want to just share the criteria that we had actually put together, and we had an appendix slide in the appendix on that. So we've come up with a few criteria on the basis of which we will be evaluating the proposal. So this is the preliminary criteria. So like Nick mentioned, we're looking at the countries and cities. We're looking at the data points. So that's hence the emphasis on coverage of as many data points across the whole value chain as possible, because like we have been saying, gives us a complete view or a holistic view of the value chain. Looking at the research methodology, which you come up with and which you propose, the timeline and the budget, and also your past experience in terms of conducting projects of a similar nature. So this is a broad list of criteria that we will be using to evaluate each of the proposals which are submitted. But of course, if there's clarificatory questions which we need to ask of the submission, we'll come back and ask that as well.
Can you also speak, Umesh, to another of the questions here around data authentication? How would we go about that, or how should the applicants think about going about that?
Actually, it's at this stage, I can only say that we should look at primary research for data gathering, but you should also run cross-checks, and that's something that I've emphasized as well. As you gather the data, try and do cross-checks to make sure that the data that you submit, even with the raw data that you've collected, sounds and looks good to begin with. We're running demographic checks, we're running per capita checks based on what is the local data which is available, even published data which is available. Can we check and cross-check to make sure that it sounds sensible? That's, I think, the first starting point. Sabine, anything else from your previous experience in terms of collecting data that you've come across which will help the applicants to make sure that the data that's submitted is sound and proper?
Yeah, that's one of the challenges to verify the data and to qualify the data. However, it's important that if someone else would do the exercise in parallel, it would be replicable. Yeah, so I think that's one of the major characteristics, that we are very clear about the boundaries, the definition of the baselines, how you have gathered the information, and then it is sound. Yeah? We do have a data quality grid developed in the background for all the data and data domains what we have currently in PRISM. And I'm happy to share that with you so that you also understand what we are looking for. And the main driver is the methodology. And the second one is the age. So if you do a desktop research and data is 5 to 7 years old, then it is definitely not the best data. If you do a waste characterization in a city of 500,000 people and you only cover, I call it now, 1,000 kilograms of municipal solid waste, then it's also not representative, and then the data quality is poor. So those are the elements what we are looking for in order to define how solid and how robust are the metrics and the data for the specific metrics which had been shared.
Yeah, and Sabine, there are a couple of questions as well on sample size and minimum volume requirements. So any more detailed guidance there based on building on what you just said?
Yeah, sure. So we do have developed a guidance for waste characterization. We have used this from standards from multiple places. I'm happy to also share those for specifics so that we have, I call it grid, what is the minimum waste, municipal solid waste, which should be looked at based on the size of the city or the location where the assessment is taking place, as well that this is mixed, that it's not only the municipal solid waste which is segregated, but it's also taken into account what might have been taken already away from the informal sector before, so that it is really providing a thorough assessment. How does the municipal solid waste stream look like? What are the different elements within that stream to understand what is missing then in the waste generation, why it is missing? Those are the elements which help then to derive the right strategy to improve the local situation.
Terrific. There's a question here also about whether it's better to go broad or deep. So when we think about the different areas of indicators and themes that we mentioned, the question here is, you know, is it better to propose a research project that's a subset to align better for specific projects that come with that data, or is the goal to focus more on, you know, broad data collection for a broader set of potential projects? My sense is that it's the latter, but Sabine,
yes, I agree, Ellen. And we would be looking more for the second way, so to have the broad understanding. And I would like to explain also why. We have, as I said earlier, we do have started to develop archetype-specific leakage rate. And in order to do this, we need additional data points in order to fine-tune the assumptions in the model and to improve the model. And in that respect, this detailed broader information will help us significantly to improve the number of data points and to fine-tune the model. And hence, this would be the first priority for us.
Super. Also, a possibly related question from the same person. Can we propose projects where the data is taken directly from currently running infrastructure, say a MRF or a collection center?
Sure. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and I think that would be even better. Again, one of the features of PRISM is actually the locations of all of this kind of infrastructure. So if we're able to match up a data point of what the infrastructure is, and then be able to actually relate the data from that unit itself, that would be even more powerful.
Super. There was a question here just about an entity that wants to create an app or essentially a data platform that would allow for data to be collected. Is that in scope?
That is not in scope of this specific RFP. We are not looking for any additional apps or technical devices in order to build into PRISM at that point in time.
Yeah, I think though, so Sabine's absolutely right. And one of the challenges with PRISM has been to keep the focus and not to do all the hundreds of things, cool things that we've all thought about as being potentially possible. One of them, of course, is using crowdsourced data, using data that's collected via apps and so on. So the Alliance has a number of activities ongoing in that space. And I would say that's something hopefully for the near future. I'm not sure when, but it would be an interesting development aspect to consider another tab for crowdsourced information.
Terrific. And then there's one more question here around data related to demography, and does that need to be updated over a period of time? I'm not totally sure I understand the question, but
Now I do
Sure,
understand the question, because we also face that problem that especially on smaller cities, data from population or socioeconomic data might be 5 to 10 years old. And there is, from the statistics office, no newer published data available. And here, please go with the latest available information which is there, and provide also some insights if it's available locally. But that is one of the biggest problems, especially in those 3 countries where we are looking for the RFP right now, that some of the demographic data, especially in cities and municipalities, might be a little bit aged. Yeah.
I was just going to say, I think that that's something we will have to discuss further as we work individually with each of the research partners, and we identify specific geographies. And where we have source of information, where we have source of data that we can share, we will be happy to do so.
Sure.
Yeah.
Terrific. So I think I've made it through the list, but if there are any other questions, I would say I just give the group another minute to get any last ones in.
One comment as well. So this is the first RFP that we're doing for PRISM. So we want to also learn what's possible and how it's going to work. It by no means, I hope, will be the last one, because I think it's going to be a great way to engage the contributors out there, the ones who are putting together these data sets. So we want to learn as we go, and we're also keen to hear back your suggestions, especially as you have a look at PRISM and see what is there. Any suggestions also are of course always welcome. And yeah, and I think we'll be hopefully rolling these out more and more as we go forward.
Terrific. Thanks so much, Nick and Sabine and Umesh. There's one more here, and I'm going to end on this one. And this is from Sophie. Is there guidance on how to measure consumption at the city level?
I'm not sure I understood the question from Sophie.
Probably plastic consumption in a city, as opposed to plastic waste generation.
How to measure the, sorry, I didn't hear well. The plastic consumption. Yeah, there are some guidance available. So definitely it is in the area of waste assessment on the one hand, and store checks and stakeholder discussions on the other hand. So it's a combination of 2 ways to understand what can be, what is found, yeah, and then to confirm this about the market store checks in order to see the materials, to understand from the local stakeholders, these are the companies bringing this into the market. And it is more difficult on a city level, very clear, because it's also imported and exported. Maybe there is no local, but that would be our recommendation, to have a look on the how to measure or to give an indication about what is the plastic consumed currently in that city or municipality.
Terrific. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. We hope to see applications from all of you. I think it's really imperative that we make progress on this issue of the data gap. And we have every intention to build a more robust data community around this work, and really appreciate your time and attention to this really critical challenge. So thank you so much for joining today, and we look forward to talking with you soon. Maybe I'll just also ask each of the panelists, because I don't think we have a slide on this, but just for your information, email addresses for each of the folks on the call, maybe. I'm emartin@thecirculateinitiative.org. Umesh, you're next on my screen.
Ellen, do you want to just scroll down to the last slide? I think we have the contacts, the email address. Yeah, there you go.
Yes.
Brilliant. Thank you. Great. So please take a look at that, and appreciate your time today.
Wonderful.
Great. Thanks everyone for joining.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nick. Thanks, Sabine.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.